This attitude, of course, is not unique to classical political economy. Indeed, we might ask, was there ever a nation in which the rich found the poor to be sufficiently industrious? The universal howl of sloth and indolence could be heard as far away as 19th-century Japan. See Smith 1966, pages 120. However, no country seems to have gone as far as England in its war on sloth. Writers of the time charged a want of discipline was responsible for criminality, as well as disease. Ignatieff 1978, pages 61 ff. By the late 18th century, even hospitals came to be regarded as a proper medium to instill discipline. See Ignatieff 1978, pages 61. Almost poetically, Thomas Mann railed against the general leprosy of our piping, potting, feasting, fashions, and misspending of our time in idleness and pleasure. Mann 1664, p. 193. Josiah Tucker employed a military metaphor of war to make a similar point. In a word, the only possible means of preventing a rival nation from running away with your trade, is to prevent your own people from being more idle and vicious than they are. So the only war, which can be attended with success in that respect, is a war against vice and idleness. A war, whose forces must consist of, not fleets and armies, but such judicious taxes and wise regulations, as will turn the passion of private self-love into the channel of public good. Tucker 1776 pages 44-5. Primitive accumulation and the eradication of holidays. Although their standard of living may not have been particularly lavish, the people of pre-capitalistic Northern Europe, like most traditional people, enjoyed a great deal of free time. See Perelman 1977, chap. 18. And Ashton 1972, pages 204. See also Vernon Smith 1992, and Wisman 1989. The common people maintained innumerable religious holidays that punctuated the tempo of work. Joan Thirsk estimates that in the 16th and early 17th centuries, about one-third of the working days, including Sundays, were spent in leisure. Cited in Thomas 1964, pages 63. See also Walensky 1961. A much more extravagant estimate was produced by Kontsky, who estimated that 204 annual holidays were celebrated in medieval Lower Bavaria. Kontsky 1899, pages 107. Despite their numerous holidays, the peasants still managed to produce a significant surplus. In English feudal society, for example, the peasants survived even though the gentry was powerful enough to extract on the order of 50% of the produce. See Post in 1966, pages 603. As markets evolved, the claims on the peasants' labors increased. For example, in southern France, rents appear to have grown from about one-fourth of the yield in 1540 to one-half by 1665. Leroy Lattery 1974, pages 117. Classical political economy and the ideal working day. Once capital began to dislodge the traditional moorings of society, the bourgeoisie sought every possible opportunity to engage people in productive work that would turn a profit for those who employed wage labor. Accordingly, classical political economists advocated actions to shape society according to the logic of accumulation in order to strengthen the dependency on wage labor. In the utopia of early classical political economy, the poor would work every waking hour. One writer suggested that the footmen of the gentry could rise early to employ their idle hours making fishing nets along with disbanded soldiers, poor prisoners, widows and orphans, all poor tradesmen, artificers, and laborers, their wives, children, and servants. Puckle 1700. 2, pages 380. Cited in Appleby 1976, pages 501. Others called for new institutional arrangements to maintain a steadily increasing flow of wage labor. Fletcher of Saltoun recommended perpetual slavery as the appropriate fate of all who would fail to respond to less harsh measures to integrate them into the labor force. See Marx 1977, pages 882. Hutcheson, as we have seen, followed suit. Always the idealist, Bishop Berkeley preferred that such slavery be limited to a certain term of years. Berkeley 1740, pages 456. No source of labor was to be overlooked. For example, in a movement that Foucault has termed the Great Confinement, institutions were founded to take charge indiscriminately of the sick, the criminal, and the poor. Foucault 1965, pages 38–65. The purpose was not to better the conditions of the inmates, but rather to force them to contribute more to the national wealth. For a selection of citations that reflect more charitably on the early political economists, see Wiles 1968. Joseph Townsend proposed that in the evenings when farm workers return from threshing or from plowing, they might card, they might spin, or they might knit. Townsend 1786, pages 442. William Temple argued for the addition of 4-year-old children to the labor force. Temple 1770, pages 266. Furness 1965, pages 114–15. Not to be outdone, John Locke, often seen as a philosopher of liberty, called for the commencement of work at the ripe age of 3. Cranston 1957, pages 425. Occasionally, writers of the time found signs of progress. By 1723, Daniel Defoe was delighted to discover that so much progress had taken place in Norwich that the very children after 4 or 5 years of age, could everyone earn their own bread. Defoe 1724–26, pages 86. See also p. 493. For classical political economy such edifying scenes of hard labor were not common enough. To his credit, Jean-Baptiste Say, generally a strong proponent of capitalist development, penned one of the few protests of the state of affairs in Britain in a letter to Robert Malthus,